Look at them. The Tu-95 Bear, the B-52 Stratofortress. Together, they have flown through 9 decades of history. Their airframes have witnessed the Cuban Missile Crisis, Vietnam, Afghanistan, the fall of the Berlin Wall, the War on Terror, and now the return of great power competition. And here is the strange reality of the 2020s. Both Russia and the United States have repeatedly tried to retire these bombers. Both have failed. And now, both countries are quietly admitting the same thing. The Bear and the Buff will likely outlive their planned replacements. But nothing lasts forever, not even titanium engine nacelles or aluminum honeycomb panels. The question is not if these bombers will retire. The question is when, with what, and why 2 nuclear superpowers remain so deeply satisfied with machines that roll off assembly lines that no longer exist. Let's start with the B-52. The United States Air Force currently operates 76 B-52H models. The original retirement date was set for the mid-2040s. Then it moved to 2050. Then quietly, inside the 2022 bomber roadmap, a new figure appeared. The B-52 will now serve into the early 2060s. Some airframe life extension studies suggest that with current wing replacement and re-engining programs, the last B-52 could feasibly reach 2065. That would make the youngest B-52 almost 100 years old when it finally taxis to the boneyard. For the Tu-95, the story is less precise but equally extended. Russia does not publish fleet retirement timelines the way the Pentagon does, but open-source intelligence from satellite imagery and defense journals indicates that the current Tu-95MS and the modernized Tu-95MSM variant will remain combat-coded until at least 2040. Unofficial estimates from Russian defense analysts suggest that a small number could linger into the late 2040s. The last Tu-95 airframes were built in 1993. That means the youngest Bear today is over 30 years old. By 2040, it will be pushing 50. But the airframes are not the problem. The problem is the engines. The Kuznetsov NK-12 turboprop is no longer in production. Russia has a stockpile of spare engines, but that stockpile is finite. Once the NK-12 supply runs dry, the Tu-95 fleet will begin to shrink rapidly. Not because of wings or fuselage fatigue, but because nothing else sounds like that engine, and nothing else can replace it. So the retirement window for the Tu-95 is roughly 2040 to 2045, with a hard ceiling around 2048. The B-52's window is 2055 to 2065. Neither country will scrap these bombers overnight. Instead, they will phase them out by squadron, by airframe, as the last certified mechanics retire and the last spare parts are machined from old blueprints. The United States already has its answer flying. The B-21 Raider, built by Northrop Grumman, conducted its first flight in late 2023 from Plant 42 in Palmdale, California. The B-21 is not a direct replacement for the B-52 in terms of payload. The B-52 can carry 70,000 pounds of ordnance across 12 hardpoints and an internal bay. The B-21 is a stealth bomber designed for penetrating air defenses, not for standing off and lobbing cruise missiles from 2,000 miles away. So the U.S. Air Force is planning a 2-bomber fleet. The B-21 will replace the B-1B Lancer and the B-2 Spirit. But the B-52 will stay alongside the B-21, not be replaced by it. The actual replacement for the B-52's mission is not a single bomber. It is a combination of the B-21 for high-end penetration, the long-range standoff cruise missile for the nuclear mission, and eventually, a next-generation tanker fleet to keep both airborne. In other words, the B-52 will not have a single successor. Its role will be absorbed and distributed. Russia's plan is murkier, but conceptually similar. The Tupolev PAK-DA, or Future Long-Range Aviation Complex, has been in development since 2009. The first flight was promised for 2025, then 2027. Now the Russian Ministry of Defense quietly states 2029 to 2030. The PAKDA is also a flying wing stealth design, similar in shape to the B-21 and likely focused more on the nuclear deterrent mission. However, Russia faces the same problem the United States solved a decade ago. Developing a brand new strategic bomber is astronomically expensive. One PAK-DA is estimated to cost roughly the same as two Tu-160mm Blackjack supersonic bombers. So Russia has done something unexpected. Instead of replacing the Tu-95 directly with the PAK-DA, they have restarted production of the Tu-160M, a supersonic bomber from the 1980s. And they are modernizing the Tu-95 MSM to carry the KH-101 and KH-102 cruise missiles. The PAK-DA, when it arrives, will likely replace the Tu-22M3 backfire first, then the Tu-95 much later. The actual replacement for the Tu-95's primary mission, long-range cruise missile carrier, may end up being a drone. Russia is known to be developing the S-70 Okhotnik unmanned combat aerial vehicle in a bomber configuration. A stealth drone with a 4,000-kilometer combat radius could theoretically carry the same KH-101 missiles as a Tu-95, without a human crew, without the NK-12 engines, and without the 70-year-old airframe. So the answer to "with what" is complicated. For the US, the B-52 will be replaced functionally by a mix of B-21 and long-range missiles. For Russia, the Tu-95 will be replaced conceptually by the PAK-DA and potentially unmanned systems. But the retirement date keeps sliding right because neither replacement is ready. Satisfaction is not the same as love. The U.S. Air Force is not emotionally attached to the B-52. Russia's Long-Range Aviation Command is not nostalgic for the Tu-95. They are satisfied because these bombers do three things that no new bomber can do as cheaply or as reliably. First, cost per flight hour. The B-52 flies for roughly $70,000 per hour. That sounds expensive until you compare it to the B-1B at over $120,000, or the B-2 at over $150,000. The B-52's 8-old turbofans are fuel inefficient by modern standards, but the airframe is so simple to maintain that the overall operating cost remains lower than any other heavy bomber. The Tu-95 is even more extreme. Its NK-12 turboprops burn significantly less fuel than any jet-powered bomber of similar size. A Tu-95 can stay airborne for 18 hours without refueling. A B-52 can do 32 hours with 2 aerial refuelings. That endurance is not a curiosity. That is a strategic weapon. Both bombers can orbit outside an adversary's air defense bubble and wait for a targeting order longer than any crew wants to stay awake. Second, weapons integration. The B-52 has been upgraded to carry the AGM-183 ARRW hypersonic missile, the AGM-158B JSSM-ER, and the AGM-158C LRASM. Its internal rotary launcher for the nuclear mission is certified for the new long-range standoff weapon entering service in the late 2020s. The Tu-95 MSM carries up to 8 KH-101 conventional cruise missiles, or 8 KH-102 nuclear cruise missiles on underwing pylons, plus 6 more internally. That is 14 long-range cruise missiles per sortie. No Russian bomber carries more. No American bomber carries more external ordnance except the B-52. Both air forces have realized that in a contested environment, standoff missiles are more survivable than penetration bombers. So why build a stealth bomber to drop dumb bombs when you can keep a cheap, old airframe as a flying missile truck? That logic is why the B-52 and Tu-95 remain not just operational, but central to their nuclear triads. Why are these bombers the prides of their nations? Pride is different from utility. The B-52 is the pride of the United States Air Force because it represents endurance in the literal sense. The Buff has dropped conventional bombs in every major American conflict since 1965. It has carried nuclear weapons through every crisis of the Cold War. It was the backbone of Strategic Air Command. When Americans think of a bomber, most picture the B-52, not the sleek B-1, not the stealthy B-2. The heavy, wrinkled skin, 8-engine dinosaur that refuses to die. That refusal is the source of pride. The B-52 proves that American engineering from the 1950s was so overbuilt that it can still compete with machines built 50 years later. The re-engining program, the new radar, the new communications suite. These are not repairs, they are tributes. Every dollar spent on the B-52 is an admission that nothing better has come along. And that admission, strangely, has become a point of honor. For Russia, the Tu-95 is pride of a different kind. The Bear was never the fastest bomber. It was never stealthy. It was never particularly graceful. But it was the first Soviet intercontinental bomber that actually worked reliably. The Tu-95 flew over the U.S. Navy's aircraft carriers during the Cold War, low and slow, with cameras rolling. It forced American fighters to intercept it thousands of times. And in the post-Soviet era, when the Russian military collapsed in the 1990s, when the Navy rusted at port and the Army sold its equipment for food, the Tu-95 fleet kept flying. Not many missions, but enough to remind the world that Russia still had a long-range aviation arm. That continuity matters. In a country that has lost the Soviet Union, lost its industrial base in Ukraine, and lost its superpower status for a decade, the Tu-95 is a flying piece of unbroken lineage. The pilots flying Tu-95s today are sometimes the grandchildren of pilots who flew Tu-95s in the 1970s. The same airbase, the same basic cockpit layout, the same mission. That is not nostalgia. That is institutional memory made visible. Both nations have tried to build replacements. The US built the B-58 Hustler, the XB-70 Valkyrie, the B-1A, the B-2, and now the B-21. Russia built the M-50 Bounder, the Tu-22 Blinder, the Tu-160 Blackjack, and now the PAC-DA. Every single one of those aircraft is more advanced than the B-52 or Tu-95. And every single one either retired early or took decades to become fully operational. The lesson is uncomfortable. Sometimes the best strategic bomber is not the one that wins awards at air shows. It is the one that simply never stops flying.